Hi everyone, welcome back to Plant Happens. Today I'm doing repot and chat as you saw on the title. I have several. I think I have 4 plants ready to be repotted. I might find more, but I feel like repotting takes a really long time, so I don't think I can do much more than this. But hopefully I get through all 4 plants. So I will have multiple different not methods, but different kind of substrates to work with. I have philodendron as well as anthurium. Maybe I don't know if maybe I'll find a Hoya to repot too, but I feel like Hoya repots are very like just pluck it out and put it in another pot. So maybe it's not that interesting. And like for philodendron, I will be working with pond, my own mix of pond, as well as I'm building moss pot to go with it. And for anthuriums, I'll be working with tree fern, soil, perlite, and orchid bark mix. So I will show you what the substrate looks like when it comes to it. And I also asked, I think asked is one of the hardest word to say. Like, can you? I feel like most of the time you're not really saying asked, but asked. I don't know. I don't know how to say it. But I put a question up on Instagram and people submitted questions. So I'm hoping I can answer some of those questions while I repot these plants. Okay, so since this is gonna take a while to repot, let's get right in. So the first plant I'm gonna repot, well, it's not really a repot in a sense that I'm not moving from a pot to another pot because this is actually just in water, rooting in water right now. This is my philodendron squamical pink, or sometimes it's called squamical blushing, and sometimes the dark one is also called like squamical blood or something, but I'll just call it pink because I think that's the simplest. It's one of my most favorite philodendron, and it was growing above the moss pole in the original pot, and the bottom lost a bunch of leaves, so it was looking a little bit bare, and the top 4 leaves were looking really beautiful, as you can see. So I decided to chop it and then let it root in water. I find that's the easiest for this type of philodendron. I find that some of the philodendron with these fuzzy petioles and stems are a little bit more difficult to root right in the substrate, like even pond or perlite. Sometimes maybe it just dries out too quickly. So I've been more successful to repot these in water first and then moving it into perlite or pond or even soil, whatever the substrate you're going to be growing, what you're going to be growing. But I would like my personal experience moving water rooted plant into soil is like iffy at the best because water roots and soil roots are usually different. So I find the water roots tend to rot in soil. So I would suggest if you water root these plants, moving it into perlite first. After it get used to growing in perlite, then move them in soil, because you can just leave those perlite that's stuck on the soil, on the roots, right on there. You don't have to peel them off. You don't have to do anything. Just dust off the excess perlite and then put it in soil mix, because usually you have perlite in your soil mix anyways, right? So I've been more successful that way. Even moving to pond, sometimes I will move it to perlite first because I find perlite to be more sterile environment for it, like there's less chance of getting the root rot, as long as you're using clean perlite, that is. Anyways, so I will be building a moss pole for this because it was originally growing on a moss pole and it seems to do really well on moss pole, as you can see. So I would hate for this to die or decline, so I'm gonna try to give it a moss pole even though I hate using moss ball because you can never keep it, like keep enough moisture in the moss ball. But yeah, so I will be building one myself. I have one of these clear sheet that I get from Amazon. You can get them by like 100. And these are, I think, booklet covers or something, and I get them in legal size. Is this legal size? This is bigger than legal size. I'm not really sure what size this is. I feel like this is too small for tabloid, but too big for legal. I'll link it in my description if I can find it. So I usually you use one of this, cut it lengthwise in half, and then that's pretty perfect size for a moss ball. And I have some pre-moistened moss over here. I know a lot of people are moving away from using moss in moss ball because the roots get really attached to the moss, but I just find it really messy to use any other substrate in the moss ball, like soil pole or pond pole. It's just really hard to hold them in place because they're just like really crumbly. But moss, when they're wet, and it's really easy to make them stay in one place. So I'll be just showing you how I make a moss ball. I actually forgot to grab ruler and some Sharpie, so I'll be right back. Okay, so I have a ruler and Sharpie. This is just to make sure that I cut this straight. If you have like a large paper cutter, that's obviously better, but I just didn't want to bring out so much stuff, so I'm gonna use scissors to cut them. Cut this sheet, so I'll just have to measure it to make sure that it comes out straight. Okay, so I'm not sure if you can see, but probably not. I drew a line in the middle to make sure that I can cut it straight. Okay, so I cut them into two pieces. I'm just gonna be using one and two. So basically this sheet I will round it like so to make a moss ball. Now I'm gonna use this tape. I'm not sure if this is the actual Hugo's Amazing Tape brand, but it's basically a very flexible, soft tape that's clear, and it sticks to itself, but there's no adhesive on here. So it doesn't stick to finger, it doesn't stick to, say, like table, but it does kind of stick to this kind of material, and it sticks to itself. So I can wash and reuse this if I want to, and it comes in variety of width. This is one inch size. I also have like a 1/2 inch one, but I think I'm gonna use the 1 inch size so it secures the moss ball better. And I will try to link it in the description, how the link to the Amazon store. But in Canada these are very, very expensive, but in US these are quite affordable, so I do really recommend using this. Before I bought this tape, I used to cut the remaining sheet into like strips and then cut some slit in them and then attach them around the moss ball to secure it, but I find that it's too rigid. Sometimes it even cuts the leaf, and also I have to make sure the slit is in the right place and the length of the strip is the right length. But this one, if it's too long, you can just wrap it around. It's no problem. So I've been using this. I'm just thinking around the moss ball. This should be enough. This is a little bit awkward, but basically I'm gonna bend this into the shape I sort of want, and then I'm gonna wrap this around, and then if you can, these are all clear, so I know it's super hard to see, but I will just wrap this around and then it just stays in place. Now this is not super secure now because there's only one strip, but I'm gonna do 3 strips. Making sure that it's about the same width. You see how easy it is to attach it? And right now I think it's a little too wide, so but this is very easy to remove. So after I secure multiple places, I can go in and remove and attach it again. So I secured in 3 places. As you can see, I can hold it anyway and it doesn't come apart. This doesn't come apart, but if I go and peel it off, it's like really easy to just peel it off, and then I can just adjust the width. I think I want it a little bit skinnier at the front. Yeah, that looks about right. And it reattaches. And realistically, after I put moss in, because if I put too many tapes, then it's gonna get too hard to put moss in. So I would just leave these 3 places secured, and I'll put moss in here first. When I explain things while I'm doing things, I tend to mumble, so I'm working on being more self-aware when I'm talking. Oh, I forgot to insert a pole. 1 second. Okay, so I prefer the plastic sticks that I usually get from Lauren because obviously those don't rot, but apparently I'm out of them, so I'm gonna be using this bamboo stick as a stake. So I usually put a stake at the bottom, so because the material of these moss pole are kind of bendy, so I just need something to make sure that it's secured when it's potted inside the substrate. Even with those moss pole that you can buy, that you can just like, it's like a sheet with cutouts and you can assemble, and those are harder material, but I still find them to be really hard to stand in the substrate. So I always have a stick that goes in like this, so I can secure it in the, what's that called, the substrate. I'm thinking this might be too deep. It's okay, the top is a little bit sticking out, because next I might extend it in the future anyways. Okay, so I'm just centering it in the back, and then I'm gonna fill up the rest of the moss pole. Okay, so now it's mostly filled. I didn't fill all the way up top because I don't think the plant's gonna grow that fast all the way up top. I can always put more moss in here later on. So now that it's filled, I'm gonna add 2 more straps to secure the moss in. Now I feel this one is too wide, like the width of the pole is too wide, so I'm gonna reattach this again. Okay, so that's how I made the moss pole. Really easy. And even better thing about this strap is when the plant grows above it, I open it and then put the stem under the tape and then close it again. So I'll show you how it works once I'm starting to repot, like pot the plant in here. Okay, so I had to take a little lunch break, but I'm back. So since I made the moss pot, I'm gonna be potting this one up first, and I think it'll be the easiest anyways. I'm gonna be using pond for this plant, so let me show you my pond mix. Okay, so here is my pond mix. I just mixed it today. It has, I wanna say maybe 30 to 40% of this is perlite, and then the rest is almost equal part zeolite, pumice. Actually, not equal part. I guess there's more of zeolite and pumice, and then I added a little bit of orchiata and turfus. Is it called turfus? It's like a calcined, I don't know what you call them, these little orange bits. I just had some of these things left from before, so I decided to add it. I don't always add it. I don't have lava rocks in here, but I find them to be, not necessary. I know that it releases some, what's that called? Minerals, and it probably affects the pH of it, but I don't always add lava rock to my pond, and then so far it has been okay. So I'm gonna be using this pond mix, and how I mix my pond, I will link it somewhere up there with the card. You can take a look at how I make them. And I like mixing my own pond a lot more than using lechuza pond, because lechuza one's quite dense and heavy, and even when I use the lechuza pond, I always add perlite to make it lighter, so it's a little bit more airy, yeah. And I'm gonna use this self-watering pot that I got off Amazon. And I don't know if I can still find the link. They might not sell it anymore. I like this because it's like translucent, and I am able to see through to look at how much water is in it. I know there's a lot of, I think I'm just gonna start potting and talk at the same time. So I was actually going to say, okay, this is gonna be all over the place, but before I start, I just wanna say, because there are like some bigger hole at the bottom of this pot, I'm gonna try to pick some of the bigger piece of perlite to kind of block it, so the smaller piece doesn't fall out. Anyways, so I was saying that I feel like there's a lot of talk about using clear pots to grow plants, and I know that a lot of growers actually think, or like, I think it's true, like a lot of growers talk about it's not good to use clear pots because it exposes the root to the light, and because in nature roots are growing underground, it's never exposed to the light, and it's just not natural for them. And I agree, I think it's true that it's not natural for them, and based on what those growers experience is that it's better to have them in a solid color pot, and plants will do better. And I believe them. I think it's entirely possible that plants do better in that situation. But with that being said, I think my plants grow okay, or they grow fine with the clear pots. And I feel like the benefit of growing them in clear pots is more, how should I say, over it, the amount of the amount of hindrance it's getting from the clear pot doesn't outweigh the benefit of the clear pot for me, because I'm lazy and I want this to be as foolproof as possible. And clear pot just make it so much easier for me to see when the plant needs to be watered and how much it needs to be watered when I do water them. So when I consider those facts, I usually will decide to go with clear pot, or at least have the clear pot and then have like an outer pot to cover it. I think that's best of both worlds. But I think it works for you, then it's fine. Because whatever works for you, whatever makes it easiest, whatever makes it most, like growing most enjoyable to you, is most important. Anyways, I'm gonna attempt to attach the moss ball in, put it in here and position it. I think that's the hardest part usually. I think I'm gonna go like this and hold it together if I'm, okay. Yeah, that looks about right. So what was I saying? So yeah, I was saying whatever makes it easiest to grow plants and whatever works for you, then it's fine. I don't think it's, I mean, sure, you can tell me that it's not natural for plants, but don't tell me I shouldn't do it, because if I don't do this and then I'm killing the plants, then what's the point, right? If I don't use the clear pot, I use the solid color pot, I use the terracotta pot, but I end up overwatering, I end up underwatering, and plants die, then what is the point? So as long as it works for you, I think you just do what's best for you. I'm going in circles. It's really hard to talk while you are doing this, to be honest. Moss is falling. I'm just filling up the container with the pond and try to make sure the roots have something to grow onto. I'm gonna use back of a pencil to push some pond at the bottom of the moss ball so it has a strong base and there's no like empty space, because that's gonna make it fall much easier. Okay, so now it can stand on its own. Great. So at this point, I will try to position it the best as possible, and I do bury the base of the pot in the substrate. I will try to show you once I'm done filling this. Okay, so I just went to get a stick like this. Usually I always have one around when I'm potting things up, so I can kind of poke the substrate and make sure there's no big pocket of, like big air pocket in the substrate, so it's evenly distributed. Even with soil, I always do this. I actually get a lot of questions about this plant because some people told me they're having a hard time acclimating it, and I think, yeah, like the fuzzy petiole, fuzzy stem philodendron, I find it to be harder to acclimate, but I think it really depends on how healthy it is at the point of import. So when you see the plant and if it's really dry, really droopy, I think the chance of survival is actually really low. But I would suggest putting them in water and then waiting for them to root in water first, as I kind of mentioned earlier. And this one has been growing in my tent since day one, and it still does, and it does really well in my tent. And my tent is not super high humidity, so if that's what you're wondering, like I think it does fine in 60 to 65-ish humidity that my tent is at. But some people did tell me this does terrible in low humidity, so maybe don't just put it beside like a AC, or don't put it beside a heater or something at least. And if you are growing it in the ambient condition, maybe have a humidifier close to it. Speaking of humidifier, I got rid of all my humidifier. In the beginning of growing plants, I had probably 3 or 4 humidifier going out in different spots of different locations of my house where I was growing plants. But at the end of the day, I just felt like refilling the water and keeping it running was just too much work, and I didn't see that it's doing good for my plants, to be honest. In ambient condition, I run the humidifier. It increased the humidity from like 45 to 50%, and that's it. And I didn't really think that was helping that much anyways, so I just stopped using it. And I decided I have a tent and I have enclosure, so if I find the plant really need the humidity, I will just grow them in there, and I will grow other plants that's in ambient condition and they just do fine. Okay, so now that I've filled it up, I'm gonna try to secure the stem of this plant with the tape that's already on here. So what I do is I will just remove this, and then I will just try to hold the moss in place so it doesn't fall out. Right now it has no roots growing in there, so it's really easy to fall out, but once the roots is growing in the moss ball, it just holds its shape by itself. So I put it, I don't know if you can even see, but I just opened it and then I pulled it over the stem, and then I'm gonna just reattach it, and that's it. Super easy, and hopefully I can show you, but over here there are a lot of aerial roots, and that's what you want touching the moss, and then it will grow into the moss and it will absorb nutrition from the water once I water it with fertilizer water. So that's helps a lot with sizing up the plant in my experience, so that's why I'm doing this. I feel like the moss is a little loose, so I will be adding some more moss so it's more secure. And this part here, this stem is kind of going forward, but I'm gonna attach it back like this, so there will be a node around here that can grow roots as well, so I'm gonna be attaching it there. And again, I have a strap here. You probably can't see it, but there is a strap going across here, and I'm just gonna release it and then reattach it. And I will try to position this in the center as centered as possible, at least, so it doesn't grow like in all the different directions. I feel like this needs to be tightened a little bit more. Yeah. And as you can see, I can remove this as many times as I want, and it will be just fine. I can still reattach and it will stay in place. Okay, let's see if there's anywhere else I can add the strap. I don't add too much more than this because it's gonna get too hard to add water to it, but I mean, to water the moss is a whole other story. I feel like the top is a little not secure enough, so I'm gonna add another strap, but in the future when the roots grow into the moss, I think I'm gonna be removing this strap. Right now I just don't want the moss to fall out, so I'm a little bit overdoing this, but that's okay. I think I'm about done repotting this. Let me add some more moss so it's a little bit more secure. Right. So this is the end result. This is not gonna be super secure until the roots start to grow into the substrate as well as the moss ball, but I think it looks fine to me. It should be fine, and I'll just get closer so you can see how it's attached to the moss ball. And I'll just add some water. I will usually at this point use Michael. So I'm gonna get the gray white and add it to water, and then I will put it in the substrate. So this is the mycorrhizae that I use, and it's been working really well. So I probably will buy this again when it runs out. I'll just put a little bit in the water. I don't use too much. I definitely notice there's more like mushroom growth in my plants sometimes, but it's okay. I just pluck them out if I find that it's annoying, but most of the time it's just 1 or 2 mushrooms. It's not a big deal. So I will just add water. And for this one, like I said, it's clear, so I can see where the water level is. You can see how much water is in it. So this is probably about how much I will add water to it. Right now it looks quite murky because even though I washed this probably like 4 or 5 times, but there's always dust in it that you can't quite completely get rid of. So that's why it looks kind of murky, but it will be fine, don't worry. Okay, so this is done. Okay, so now the least messy one is done. I'm gonna move on to anthuriums. Anthuriums, they are already potted in soil, so it's gonna be a little bit messy, but I do plan on just plucking them out and putting it in a new pot, so it should be okay. So first one I have here is what I showed in my favorites recently. This is the subsignatum crossed with puppy, and this stem situation, you know, it can definitely use a bigger pot, so I'm just gonna put it in a bigger pot. And I think I'm gonna be using this one, this container. This is takeout container, like usually what you would put soup or soupy or like food, soupy food or like stew and stuff goes in this kind of container, and it has a lid. So I'm pretty sure you've seen something like this. What's it called? Like a deli cup. Yeah, deli cup. And I have some garbage I have to throw out anyways. And this is quite a jump, but my friend Alice always does this like small, like do a big jump of the pot size, and her plants always size up really nicely. So I hope it happens to me as well. So I'm just gonna remove this plant from, oh, before I do that, I haven't shown you my substrate. Okay, so this is the substrate I mixed earlier today. This has, what's that called? The tree fern fiber, probably around 40% tree fern fiber, and then around 40% soil. I use the Promix mycorrhizae soil. I'll like put a picture on the screen, and I have about 10 to 15% perlite, and I also added some orchid barks in here. Put less than 5% orchid bark, I think. Okay, so this is the soil we were working with, and I know a lot of people put leca at the bottom, but honestly I don't. You can see this one has no leca. My other plant has no leca. If I really feel nervous, sometimes I can put like coarse perlite at the bottom. The only reason I don't use leca is because I don't want to keep it at home. If I buy a little bag, I go through it so quickly, but if I buy a huge bag, I don't have anywhere to put it. So I've been doing without it, and I think it works fine. Most of the plants have been doing fine at least. Okay, so I'm gonna fill it up maybe like an inch at the bottom, so I don't have to put the plant all the way to the bottom. And where's the stick? Oh, I still need the stick. There you go. Now, I usually would try to fill up a third of the cup before I putting the plant in, but because this has quite a bit of exposed stem already, I want it pretty deep in the pot, so I'm only filling like about this much at the bottom. And I'm just gonna remove this from the pot. I just usually, sorry if it's noisy, I usually just squeeze the pot like this, and then it will come out easily. Ah, so messy. And unless it's super compacted, I don't even mess with the root ball. I just put it directly in the pot. And I'm gonna actually remove the oldest leaf, even though it's green, but it's kind of, in a way, it's gonna be like a, how should I explain it? It's gonna be stuck on the rim of the container anyways, so I'm just gonna remove it, place it. Okay, so I placed it in the cup like so, and I think this will cover up most of the aerial roots, so that's good. Oh, I was supposed to answer the questions, but I'm like talking about what I'm doing. I'm not even answering the question. I think I'm just gonna explain what I'm doing with this one, and then the rest of the plants, I guess I don't have to talk too much about what I'm doing. But anyway, so I put some soil at the top, but the reason why I need a stick like this is not falling to the side of the pot, and there's huge air pockets, and if I leave it like this, it won't be good. I mean, this might be just so basic. I don't, like, you might think, why am I even explaining this? But sometimes people don't talk about obvious things, and maybe that's some blind spot for some people. So I'm just explaining why I use this stick. So then I can use this to gently push the new substrate down the side of the pot, so it fills out those void. And you can use whatever stick. Some people use chopsticks, some people have like metal stick, I assume, and so I just find any stick that's around. Sometimes I will use like a name tag, but this is like sticks that I got from balloon set from dollar store. This is something you attach a balloon to, but I never used this, so I'm like, perfect, I'll just use this. Okay, so hopefully you are able to see, but now the side is all filled, so there's no huge air pocket in there. Okay, let me look at what kind of questions I got, because I kind of forgot. Okay, so the first question I have here is, if I could keep only one Anthurium, one Philodendron, and one Hoya, which will they be? That is a really difficult question. First of all, it changes all the time. Second, I'm the person who says this is one of favorite to every single plant. So that is very difficult. But for Anthurium, oh, that is difficult. I think I would say Dark Phoenix would be the one that I would keep for sure. Not for sure, but I think right now my Dark Phoenix is not doing too well, so it's kind of sad looking, but I'll just insert some pictures here if I can find like when it was pretty. It was one of my first really dark and velvety Anthurium that I really fell in love with, so I just always have a soft spot for it, and I also have made different kinds of hybrids with it, so I just have a lot of sentimental attachment to this plant, and by this plant I mean Dark Phoenix. So I think I'll be really, really sad if I'm ever like without it. Although I really love like dog block Michelle that I recently got, but it's such a new plant, so even though I love it very much, I don't have that attachment with it. So yeah, I think Dark Phoenix will be the Anthurium that I will keep. For Philodendron, I think it will be either the Patriciae or the squamical pink that I just repotted. I really can't decide which one I will keep. I think Patriciae is really easy to replace at this time, so maybe I'll go with the squamical pink because it's not always easy to get a specific specimen that's really dark but really pink at the same time and is acclimated and growing well. So yeah, let's go with that one. And for Hoya, how do you even choose one Hoya to keep? I don't know. Let me take a look. I really don't know. I really don't know which Hoya I will keep. If I think about how much I have to spend to replace, maybe my light prism, because it's pretty expensive still and you can only get like one node most of the time. But I don't think I have really like super hard to replace one that I really love. My Joy Splash is something I really love as well, but I think it's much easier to get it nowadays. So if I think about like rebuilding my collection, I probably can get another one. But it is bigger, so there's also that. That is a really difficult question to answer. Yeah, I think I'm gonna go with light prism for now. Photo. It's really cute one, so I think everybody should get one if you can find one for reasonable price. Anyways, so this one is done. Super simple. I just plucked it out from this and put it in a bigger pot, and this should do just fine because I didn't do anything to it, and substrate is pretty much the same, so it should do just fine. Okay, next plant I have here is, if you know, you know, this is called I don't know if this is called, but this is Vag Lux. So I got this plant from Lauren from North Shore Tropicals, and she made this hybrid from Anthurium crystallinum and magnificum and forgetii, and the sinus was overlapped in a way that it looked like you know what, and then she hybridized that one with a luxurians, which we call Vag Lux for obvious reasons. Okay, so my kids just came home, so you might hear them walking around here and there. Anyways, as you can see, the stem is crazy, so it definitely needs repot. I might need to cut off a little bit at the bottom so I can put it like deep enough, because this is not as big of a size up as the last one, and the substrate looks quite dense, so I might dust off some of the loose bits. And okay, let's see. Also, I want to peel off some of these sheath. Isn't it super satisfying to peel off the sheath? I love peeling off the sheath. It is working on a new leaf, but the new leaf hasn't emerged yet. So I think it should be okay to repot this right now. Okay. Now this is quite dense. Ooh. So I might need to remove some roots because I think it was previously rotten. This root, these are rotten. When you pull, it just pulls off really easily, and it leaves you with these really like fine hair-like strands. Those are like result of root rot. And then when I pull, it just comes off super easily. Those are rotten roots. So I'm gonna be removing all of that. And I do suggest using gloves, but I personally cannot stand of the feeling of having gloves on my hands. So I make sure I just clean my hands really well before and after. But if you ask my opinion, you should wear gloves. Although there's some root rot, this will do just fine because I can see start of new healthy roots everywhere. Like, I don't know if you are able to see, but there's a little bit dot of yellow there. That's healthy new growth, and there's new growth here, and also at the top there's a lot of start of new roots, so those will do just fine. I don't know if I should cut this. I can see that this has never been cut before. Do I have space to make a prop? Decisions. I think I'm just gonna leave it. Okay, so that's mostly clean now. And this will be more than big enough to plant in here. Okay, before we move on, let's check some questions. My next question is, I'm thinking maybe I'm gonna skip the Hoya questions for, should I answer the Hoya questions? I don't know. Maybe let's talk about how do you treat spider mites and thrips. I think a lot of people get really discouraged when they get the pests. So number one, I do use mites, beneficial mites, or what is it called, beneficial mites? But anyways, yeah, I've used Swarovskis, I've used cucumaris, I've used spickle mites and stuff, all sorts. And I don't have them all the time, but I do have them quite often. In a year, I probably purchase mites maybe 4 times, 1 per season kind of, as a preventative measure. Don't buy mites if you already have the pest. They're really good for prevention. They usually eat the eggs and the pupae of the spider mites or the thrips. So once they're adult bugs, the mites won't eat them unless you're buying one of those tiny beetles to eat them, but they kind of get everywhere and they actually bite you. I've used them and they're very useful, very effective, but they need to be in a contained environment if you are using those beetles. I have never tried ladybugs. I don't know how effective they are, but I know some people use them. But I find thrips to be easier to treat or like easier to get rid of because they're a lot more visible. So I use the mites for control. So I typically find them before it's too late, and I have mites, and then I will treat that plant. And I use thrip killer from Dr. Doom. The spray is called thrip killer or thrips killer. And I've also used spinosad, and it is very effective, but you do have to treat it at least once a week for several weeks because it doesn't kill the egg that's in the plant tissue. So you have to continue to do that if you do get thrips or spider mites. So I've also used the systemic, like imidacloprid. I think it's useful, but I've heard that spider mites kind of evolve and adapt to the environment so quickly. So if you use the imidacloprid too often, you're gonna get spider mites that's so strong that they are resistant to it. So if I do suspect spider mites and even flat mites, when I get them, like when I see the damage, what I do is I will spray down those plants with spider mite killer. So Dr. Doom has one, and there's also end all. So I will spray down the entire plant, like leaf, stem, if you're unpotting it, maybe even the roots. And I take a makeup brush that is bigger, not like a teeny tiny eyeshadow brush, but more so of a face brush. You can also use paintbrush that's bigger. Small one is fine, but it just takes a long time. And what I do is I use the brush to brush the entire plant. Like the little bristles really helps getting whatever the ingredients in the spray into every little crevice, and at the same time it will brush off the dead spider mites or dead thrips. So I've found that to be really useful. Yeah, so that method has helped me keep them at bay for a really long time. So not just leaf, you have to do leaf, petiole, stem, and everywhere. Just brush it. Like I will usually brush and rinse it off and brush. Well, brush, rinse it off, and then keep going until I don't see anything visible. And you repeat that process once a week for, I think for spider mites, at least 4 to 6 weeks. For flat mites, I would say 8 to 12 weeks. It's really annoying process, but once you do that, I think you can apply the beneficial mites at the same time. Yes, the ingredients gonna kill some of those mites as well, but as long as you're not spraying it on top of them, I find them to survive just fine. At least most of them seem to survive for me. So that's how I usually deal with my pest problem. To be honest, thrips and spider mites, or even mealybugs, those things that's on the leaves or on the stem or on the petiole, are like least of concern for me. My least favorite, most hated pest is root mealies, and I usually only get them on Hoyas, and I honestly don't know where they come from. They only attack the roots, and because a lot of plants I have it in like a cover pot, so once you find that there's root mealies, usually that's when there's already damage to your plant, like your roots are dead because they're eating the roots, and your leaves are yellowing, leaves are dropping, and there's essentially nothing I can do to get rid of them. I've tried spraying like into the substrate, it does nothing. The only thing I could do is removing the substrate entirely, cutting off the roots entirely, and reroot them. That's the only thing that's worked for root mealies. I was told that Azamax, it's a type of pesticide, as well as I think you can use it as a soil drench. I've heard that Azamax as soil drench can work, but I haven't done it enough. I haven't used it enough to really say that yes, it works. What other questions do we have? Most underrated plant. What is most underrated plant in my care? I had to think about that. Most underrated. I don't know if anything is underrated. I feel like maybe my poly. I know some people like poly, but I don't see a lot of people talking about it anymore. This is what I'm talking about. What else is underrated? I feel like right now plant community is very like aeroids or Hoyas. I mean, obviously those are the plants I like, so I'm more immersed in those community. But what else? Like what about this tree? The name I cannot say, so I'll put it down here. But they are actually really popular, like species as well. But I just feel like it's not very well loved in the community that I'm in. So I think more people should get into these plants. I think in China, what I heard is those like plants with very like thick trunk, and then it grows those almost like a bulb at the base of the tree is really popular. So I think maybe it's not getting the same kind of traction here in North America. Like when I went to the aeroid show, I feel like yeah, it's an aeroid show, but it had a lot of other genus there as well. But I didn't see any of these type of plants. So I keep saying these type of plants because I don't know how to say their name. It's just really hard to say their name. But anyway, so this is done. This was also super easy. I just plucked it out, dust off all the excess substrate. I removed all the rotten roots, and then I put them in the new substrate. So this substrate is, I mean, I added water to them just so it's moistened, but I will be adding a little bit more of this water with mycorrhizae in it. But because it's already somewhat wet, I'm not gonna add too much. I don't want it to be too soggy because that's gonna cause root rot. Okay, just a little bit. And I'm gonna put these tags back on. If I wanna give one advice to everybody in plant society is to tag your plants. I was that person who can remember everything. Like I knew every single plant names, and I knew every single like species of the names. But once I started getting all the hybrids, especially Anthurium hybrids, and once I started growing my own hybrids, there's way too many seedlings, and all the seedlings look the same. So please always tag your plant so you can remember what they are. And lastly, today I'm gonna tackle my tofu. As I mentioned in my last video, the leaf is hardened enough and it's not putting out new leaves, so I think it's good to go. And I am scared. I don't even remember what kind of substrate I used for this. So, oh, I need a big inner pot for this. Let me get that. I think I'm gonna use one of these. They're actually probably even same size. I thought maybe this one was bigger, but looking at it now, it's pretty much same. Then maybe I'll use this. I don't even know if this is that much bigger, but I am cutting it, so oh, it's in pawn. Oh, then maybe I'll do pawn. Okay, I have to get rid of this first. Be right back. Okay, so I got this container that I'm putting my used pawn in, and I have some moss at the top that I need to get rid of. I guess I could just put it in. Where can I put it in? Okay, I'll just put it in this random container. So next question is, what I think, do I like pond for certain plants, or how? Basically, I think the question is how I decide which one I put in pond and which one I don't, is what I'm guessing. And the answer is by trial and error. For most of the Hoyas, I find that pond works fine. So I would feel pretty confident putting Hoyas in pond. But when it comes to Anthurium, I feel like not all of them do well in pond. One Anthurium that I'm confident to grow in pond is definitely Dark Phoenix. And I'm also very confident that Luxurians do well in pond. But other than that, I think you really need to try and see. I think the X1 that I got from Jose is doing really well in pond, and like when I received it, it was already in pond, so that's a good indicator that it's gonna do well in pond. And also I will be more inclined to use pond if it was like the roots have no substrate attached to it. If the Anthurium was rooted in, say, like moss or soil, I'm less inclined to put it in pond because I don't want those organic matter to rot in pond. But if I'm rooting something new, or I have like a newly growing roots that's yellow and that's healthy, then I feel more confident putting it in pond. But I definitely feel like I've been using tree fern soil more for Anthurium. For philodendron, I think pond works just fine for most of the philodendron that I've grown. Yeah, I feel like anything that you can easily root in water, root in perlite, it does really well in pond. That would be my answer. Another question is, what is my least favorite plant in my care? And it's kind of mean to say this, but I have a pretty clear answer to that, and that is Syngonium strawberry ice. I've had it for a really long time, and it's actually like growing in the back over there. You can't see it, but I just find them to be really not that appealing. Maybe I'm just not doing a great job growing it, and that's the issue, but they never size up for me, and they grow in like bush-like manner, and like the leaves come out like rolled up burrito, and it does just never open up sometimes. And I don't know what the issue is, and then it drops the lower leaf, and then everything's at the top. I really don't enjoy the look of them. I think well-grown one is pretty, but I seem like I cannot grow one well, so I kind of want to get rid of it, but also not that many people want it. So I've just been keeping it, and I propagate them sometimes, but once they're rooted, they drop all the bottom leaves, and they just look super stupid with just 2 leaves at the top and then naked stem, like 3 inches of naked stem at the bottom with like dinky leaves at the top. Okay, so I haven't been saying what I'm doing, but I'm loosening up the pond in the roots, because I think I'm gonna cut this. So if I am going to cut this, I will have to detangle the roots. Roots looks pretty healthy. I need some shears. Wow, did I? This looks like it has never been cut. So I think when I received it, it was a small plant, small to medium sized plant, and I don't think it was ever cut ever since it was grown from seed. It was not grown from seed in my care, but whoever made it grown from seed, and I don't think it was ever cut because I can see to the bottom, and this is where the stem starts, and then it grows all the way to here. So I'm gonna cut this. I don't know if I wanna cut to the point that there's no roots, but then if I keep the roots, it's gonna be still quite tall. What to do? I might try to keep just one big strand, although this is not the healthiest strand of roots. If I keep 2 strands, that might do, because top looks like it's pretty ready to put out new roots. Yeah, I'm gonna do that. Since there's so many what's that called, nodes, like the stem is so long, I'm not even gonna be careful with not going through the auxiliary bud. I'm just gonna cut it wherever I feel like I can. There you go. So this is what we have to work with. I'm gonna let the surface dry a little bit over here. And then I'm gonna chop this into maybe 2 pieces. I wanna do 3, but I just don't have that much space. Okay, let's see, that is... Okay, this is a good place to cut. Okay, so I have this one to work with and this one to work with, and I'm gonna trim some of the roots. What I find with stem cutting is having too much roots is actually not that great. So I'm gonna trim that. Oh my god, I just realized I've been talking with this little protective sponge thing that fell. So I don't know how the audio is gonna turn out for this one, but anyways, this might be a little controversial, but I use cinnamon to color the cut surface. So I know that most people just let this sit and dry out. So this is how the surface looks like. And what I don't like is I have to like kind of wrap it in a way the roots doesn't dry out, but the stem needs to dry out, and it's just really annoying. So I usually just coat the cut surface with cinnamon. I get like a piece of paper. I dump some cinnamon onto it, and I just dip it. And I know some people say this doesn't work, it's like not proper way to do it, but it's always worked pretty well for me. I mean, for me to like discourage the cut surface from rotting. So this is what I do. I coat the cut surface with cinnamon. And I'll do the same for this one. I'll do the same with the top cutting later. Yeah. Okay. Let's see what my next question is. Wondering if you have any other job besides being a mom and plant seller. I do have a part-time job. It's more of an on-call job. So I work as a personal assistant, basically like a kind of like a secretary, I guess, but I help my boss take care of her personal matter. Like, for example, during the tax season, it's pretty busy. I have to collect all her tax documents and make sure that's submitted to the accountant to file tax in time. I sometimes accompany her to different like offices, say if she needs to go to, I don't know, ICBC or something, and because her English is not her first language, she sometimes needs help with translation and talking to the officials that like she doesn't feel comfortable, so I accompany her to those places and help her translate. What else? Yeah, and sometimes just accompanying her to like personal events, or even just going shopping with her sometimes, keeping her company. Yeah, so I do that part time. My boss lives in Vancouver part time, so I think around half of the time she's in Vancouver, half of the time she's in her home country, and then I pick her up from the airport, things like that. And when she's here, I'm more busy because it's pretty often that she will look for me to help her. When she's not here, I basically work up my own time schedule. So that's how I have time to do these things. Like I just plan it so I don't have to work every day. Yeah, so that's basically what I do. Previous to like current situation, I did work full time. My boss owned a childcare center, and basically I was the director of the childcare center. So I did like do administrative work for it and did some payroll, do some HR things like that. But she sold the childcare center last year, so since then I have been only working part time. Okay, so I'm cutting off the excess roots from here because this is too much. Like to pot this up, you're gonna need such a huge container for a stem cutting. I think it's kind of ridiculous, so I usually just cut off the roots that I feel like is unnecessary. I think that's still too much. Maybe I'll just cut this one more time. So I have 3 stem cutting of my tofu anthurium. Okay, so that's good. Some cinnamon, like so. That's probably more than enough. I would prefer to cut it some more, but I think that's good enough. And this one, should I cut any? Maybe I'll cut this one, the oldest strand. Okay, that should do it. I need more containers. Okay, so I buy these clear cups from Amazon, and I'm gonna use this to propagate these stem. Okay, I'm just looking to see if I can clean off some of the dead part. I use this earwax scraper, the famous earwax scraper, to clean off any like rotten parts. I don't do as much stem cleaning as like Charmaine does, but I do like to get rid of like the rotten, like the base of the petiole usually gets kind of stuck, and over time it gets rotten. I don't think it affects the plant that much, but since this is a propagation and I have chance to clean it up, then I will do it. Okay, what other questions? Okay, I think I only have Hoya questions. So what is my favorite variegated Hoya? By variegated, I assume you don't mean the silver ones. So then variegated Hoya, I feel like I have to go back to my Lai Prism. It's one of my favorite variegated Hoyas. I actually really like Polyneura outer variegation. I think they look really classy and like elegant. So that's another one that I really like. I guess I'll try to insert photos. Okay, so that should be clean enough. I'm gonna use pond because these were already in pond. A little bit of pond at the bottom. I think when you put roots in pond, one thing I want you to be careful is not to have all the roots in one bunch. Try to spread it out a little bit so it has space to grow. And when you put pond in this situation, it is gonna get caught. So you do want that little poking stick to get it in between the roots. The poking stick, I put it away apparently, so I'm just gonna use this. And shaking it kind of helps too. So as you can see here, you see that roots is all in a bunch and then there's no pond in between. That I'm gonna try to help by poking it to get pond in between the roots. And I also kind of squeeze the side of the pot to help it distribute the pond in between the roots. But you know, sometimes it's impossible to get it into like every single crevice, and that's okay. Just do what you can. Having an air pocket is not necessarily all bad. Because having too much is not good, but like some air pockets are actually probably good for the plants. So it's getting the airflow into the roots so it doesn't get rotten. I think it's very difficult to show on camera, but there is actually a growth point underneath here, so I'm not gonna cover that, but I will cover as much as possible. And again, I'm squeezing the side of the cup to feed the pond down in between the roots, and I even drop it to have the gravity help pull it down. Okay, so I'm gonna show you, but the same spot that now has a lot more pond in between the roots. The reflection is making it really hard to see, but trust me that there's a lot more pond in between roots now. And what I find helpful with stem cutting is having it in really, really high humidity. You can put this in a bin, but I actually don't have a lot of bin available to use. So what I usually do is just have another cup and close it like this. I'm gonna put a little bit of water in here. You don't need too much water when you are closing it, doming it, because most of the water doesn't even escape or evaporate, so it stays moist for a really long time. I'm losing my voice. Where's my tape? So I cup it and then I tape the side so it doesn't fall off. So kind of like this. And tag it. Stem cuttings are so hard to tell which one's which once you forget which one's which. So make sure you tag your stem cuttings. Okay, I think I'm running out of battery on my microphone, so I'm actually gonna do the stem cuttings later, and I'm gonna do the main plant first. So it's been drying for a bit, but I'm sure this is still not dry. So I'm gonna coat this in cinnamon. It's not fully coated, but I'm just gonna move it a little bit so it's mostly coated. So that's mostly coated. And I'm gonna put it in this clear pot, I think. Yep. Let me peel off some of the sheath like the other one. I need somewhere to sit this. I'm gonna put it in here. First, I'm gonna fill the bottom. Fill it about this much. This one, because it's the way it's growing, it's just gonna sit on top of this pot really easily. I'm gonna twist it a little bit so the roots are not bent in a weird way. See, try to get the stem straight. There you go. And I'm gonna fill it up. This is really hard. I need to do it this way. There you go. I don't know why I was doing it that way. And because this one had not that much roots, I'm not gonna be worried about those big air pockets. Okay, so that's pretty much filled. As I mentioned, there's not that much roots, so I'm not super worried about how the air pocket is. I don't see any air pockets at the moment, to be honest. It's really wet, so like it's dripping a lot of water at the moment, but yeah. So this is how much I filled. I didn't fill all the way to the top because as it gets taller, it's gonna grow more roots and I have space to fill a little bit more. But at this point, this is enough and it's covering all those start of the roots. So I think I'm happy with this. I just need a cover pot for this because this is too small. Give me 1 second. I think this L-hole pot might work. Let's see. It's a little too short, but I think that's fine. It's coming out a little bit, but that's okay. It's actually really easy to pull up the inner pot in this situation. This used to bother me a lot, but now I think it's fine. It is what it is. So yeah, that was pretty quick. I'm just gonna adjust this tiny bit because I don't like the way the stem is sitting. Okay, that's good. The newest leaf is looking good. And same as the rest. But the pond is really wet already, but it's not to the point that there's a reservoir at the bottom. So I'm just gonna dump the rest of this micro water in it. And so basically now the inner pot is sitting in the outer pot and the outer pot will hold whatever the excess water and work as a semi-hydro. I'm just gonna take this sticker off. I don't know why I even kept it. Okay, so that's done. And then I think I'm gonna finish the stem cuttings off camera later because I'm really running out of the battery now. Okay, so finished repotting all the plants and I know it was quite chaotic. I don't know what kind of footage I got. I don't know what kind of audio quality I'm gonna get. But I'm done repotting some of the plants that I was dreading to repot, especially this guy. So I'm really happy with that. And I hope watching me repot gave you some new perspective, new ideas of how you will do it, and hopefully it was helpful. And again, if you have any questions that I missed, or if some of the things I was doing you don't know why or how I was doing, make sure you put it down in the comments. I will answer as soon as possible. And yeah, so hopefully I forgot to mention, but I am gonna have live sale next week. I'm gonna have live sale with Charmaine and Alice on my Instagram account next Tuesday. I don't know when this video is going up, but I'm pretty sure this is going up before the live sale. So the coming Tuesday, I will have live sale on my Instagram, and I will be super busy next week doing the live sale, doing the invoicing, and then doing the packing. So I'm not sure if I'll be able to do a video next week. If I am able to, I want to, but I might skip a week. So just putting that out there. And I am able to ship Canada and US, continental US, and I cannot do PO box unfortunately, but I do ship to most of the states of US. So if you are watching from US, you know, I ship plants to you guys too. So please tune in if you are able to. If you head to my Instagram, I will have the information saved on my highlight, so you can take a look there, and there's also information about how the whole live sale work over there. Anyways, so I hope you enjoyed today's video, and I hope to see you in my next one. Bye now.